Mic check, 1 2 1 2. All right. This is a public service announcement going out to all entrepreneurs. Stop creating SOPs, or at least stop creating them in the traditional sense that we learn SOPs with. Let me explain. Now, SOPs are great in theory, right? You systemize your business. You can remove yourself from the business. You get the business to run without you as if you're there, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. But here's the truth. 9 times out of 10, traditional SOPs, they do not work. Why? For starters, they're too long. Some people, most people create them as 20-page manuals, right? 2, they exist, but teams oftentimes don't use them for a reason that they don't know, but I'll tell you why, right? 3, they're too complicated, right? 4, there are hundreds and thousands of parts of your business that you, in your mind, you think needs to be SOP'd. So which ones do you create? Without knowing that, you end up creating everything. And so you overwhelm your team and nobody reads them and they do not get used. That is not how human beings retain information and use information. Let me tell you a story. So my daughter, 6 years old, and yesterday we were, I was teaching her how to cook and that kind of thing. I'm the chef in the family. And so we were learning how to use the air fryer. Okay. So I was teaching her how to use the air fryer. And I'm going to show you where SOP comes in, right? And so one of her favorite things she likes to eat are these like fish fillets that are, in the fridge and that kind of thing. And so she wanted to make it. And obviously she doesn't know how to make it, but she knows how to read. And so we start looking at the back packaging that tells you the instructions of how to make things and how to do things. And what I noticed was actually the basis for me making this video, which is a reminder that the proper way to do SOPs is for them to be resource guides, not full-on 20-page documentation. And so for my daughter who wanted to learn how to make her fish fillet, there were only 2 important information to her at the time. 400 degrees Fahrenheit, 10 minutes. That is all she needed to know. She didn't need to know, step 1, go inside the refrigerator, open the handle, pull it out, look down to see if you could find those are all implied. And that is what's wrong with SOPs today. And that is what we do as entrepreneurs, which overwhelms our team. So let me show you the better solution for how to approach actually creating SOPs that works for your team. The first thing I want to introduce you to is what's called the visual process mapping. Now, in your business, it's separated as different business functions. Depends on the stage you're in. A large business, they have different business departments. When you're a smaller business, sub 50 mil, generally you have different business functions. These are different parts of the business that are running. You have marketing, sales, recruitment or HR, that kind of thing, right? And so in this case, your business is separated as different business functions. But for lack of better words, if we really overly simplify them, we're really looking at customer acquisition, customer delivery, and the rest could fall into operations, right? And when you break operations a bit more, you may have finance, you have recruitment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. For today's conversation, let's just talk about customer delivery or fulfillment of the jobs that your customer is hiring you to do. And so when I say stop creating SOPs, this is what I want you to do instead. So this is an actual flow chart for my actual cleaning business. This is our live document. This is not a duplicate. This is the actual thing, right? And so this is the document that my team uses every single day when they need to make decisions. And as you can see, it is fairly simple to use, right? It breaks down the exact steps that high level that we do once a client is booked. We assign our cleaners, then we update the job on our platform or tool. We send them a concierge message on the day of we do certain activities. And then after the service is done, this is what happens, right? So this is the basis of it. The first thing is we generally start, instead of creating SOPs, we actually map out what is the actual real steps that the company or the team takes to do whatever it is they need to do. And then from there, then we take it a step further and create what we call resource guides, right? Now, SOPs, standard operating procedures, generally when we talk about it, right? And I'm thinking back to it now, it was 2014 that I read the E-Myth Revisited. I read that book, I think it's Michael E. Gerber. And I just fell in love with the idea of SOPs and so I went and created SOPs for my team. At the time, I was running a marketing agency and I actually have a copy of one of those right here. So this is one of the SOPs I created. It's called Building Relationships. Introduction. If you're reading this book, this was, I thought I was doing my thing. But as you can start seeing, the pages add up and they add up and they're adding up, right? and there's adding up, and they keep adding up, and the list goes on, right? Ironically, I actually mentioned the E-Myth Revisited here as a recommended read if you're going to work for this company, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. The cool thing about this document is that it was pretty. It still is pretty, right? It was pretty. It seemed branded. It seemed like this was an official business. This was my office back then. Man, TBT. Anyways, so that's a good thing, right? And it seemed like we had our stuff together. The bad news is this document was not usable. It wasn't useful. Nobody could use it. Why? Because oftentimes you don't need the SOP to read it and then to memorize it and then use it. Generally, you just need this document or this thing when you need it at the time. And so this is the first thing that I think a lot of us get wrong with creating these systems for our companies is that we create these long documents, but if I only needed one piece of documentation, one piece of information, it'll be hard to find. So let's go back to the example of my daughter in the fish fillet. Let's say this was a whole entire, on the back of these boxes, there was like a whole entire recipe, cookbook, whatever. And within these paragraphs is when it says, put your air fryer to 400 degrees and put it for 10 minutes, right? In the heat of the moment, granted, those numbers will stick out because they're numbers. But think about your business. Somebody's on a call with a client. Somebody's dealing with an emergency, dealing with a situation, but they can't get access because they got to scroll through Command or Control F, try to find on the same page to see what needs to happen, right? And so this is where the next step comes in. So once you finish mapping out your business functions, the immediate next thing to do is to essentially create supporting documentation for each of those steps. So for example, right here, the first thing we do is we assign cleaners. So how do we assign cleaners? Well, what are the questions that my team is going to have when they're doing that? And the main question they have is not even how do we do it on the tool we use, because it's pretty self-explanatory. So we don't have an SOP for go to the tool, press this, then click that. It's unnecessary, right? The only useful information to my team at that moment is how we're going to pay our cleaners. And so right there, if I click this doc, it opens another doc that just gives, this is the information. For these scenarios, this is how much we pay our cleaners. So if it's a deep clean, in this example, this is for a clean business. If it's a deep clean, we pay them this. We'll go as high as this if there's a situation. We'll go as low as that, blah, blah, blah. This is the SOP. This is what they get for that particular section. That is all they need to know who to. Now, there's another piece of information that's necessary. This is found in our recruitment flow chart, right? Where we say, once you hire somebody, we put some details there for them. So the team is also, they know they can go to the cleaner's profile to learn more about them to see if they're a good fit for that client. But again, all that already exists. There's no point of documenting that. They're not going to need that information. This is what they need. And so they get that, right? But then if you keep forward, we say you got to update the job. So once the job is confirmed, you update it. And the next thing is, well, what do we update that job with? This is the format. This is the layout that we use to update every single job. And this is an example of what it could look like in a particular client's portal. So we can see. So again, it's not a check by check, step one, do this, step two, do that, step three. It is strictly resources that they need in the moment of time that they need it. And so at any given time, my teammates have this thing open here and they can just quickly go and look and see what they need to do, right? The same thing applies for all these other stages in the business. So the same thing, and I'm looking at our customer delivery, but the same thing applies for recruitment and customer acquisition. Same idea. Essentially, they come in, and so an example of recruitment, once we're reaching out to somebody, there's a script that we use. That's the only thing they need in that moment. You click the link, they get to the script, right? Then they schedule a call. They get on that call, this is the script they need to follow, right? And if I click it, same thing, it opens a document, and you can see this is the call. Introduction, greet them politely, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. So as a result, we're able to have a relatively clean SOP library that doesn't have too many things, but it only has the important and necessary things that the team needs to do what they need to do. So in conclusion, stop creating SOPs. Instead, map out your processes and then create supporting documents, which could be templates, which could be images, or it could be whatever you need. Create these documents that are going to help you in communicating with your team what they need to do, as opposed to giving them a 20, 50,000 page document that they need to follow. All right. Now I'm going to have some links below that you can download to help you as you're doing this stuff. Now, if you are a company that is looking to have systems built for yourselves, SOPs built for yourselves, you can either follow the advice here. But I also take on a couple clients that I help do this as well. My team and I can help you systemize your business, help you create your SOPs, and create SOP libraries and get your team in sync so that you can remove yourself from the day-to-day. So if you're interested, look below for some links for how to get in touch. If not, you got questions below, let me know. Peace.